A dozen men. 12 men weathered the furious avalanche that forced their chimera tumbling down the hillside. The men inside were strapped in as best they could. Commander Albrecht had barely managed to slip inside the transport before the wall of ice and snow struck. His men grabbed a hold of him and tried to prevent him from being flung this way and that as they rolled down the hillside. In the valley, the heretic forces rallied and surged forward, heedless of the mines that had been set by the Arcturan 19th. They rushed towards the separated chimera like a murder of crows upon carrion. The trapped men inside the chimera could not hear the explosions outside as the avalanche drove them down the hill. Fortunately, the chimera eventually tumbled until it was upright again. Most of the men were battered, but unbruised. Albrecht's shoulders ached from where his men gripped him. Unfortunately, one of the straps that secured the men within the chimera broke during the fall. Poor Axeli tumbled this way and that, bashing into the hard metal floor and ceiling of the vehicle. As the other men unstrapped and began scrambling to the exit, Albrecht moved towards the wounded man. He could tell by the angle of his foot that it was either broken or at least severely sprained. I'm not going to be able to walk. I will not leave you to those vultures, Axeli. Albrecht handed him a frag grenade. Kill the heretics and go in glory into the Emperor's arms. Axeli nodded as Albrecht saluted him and left the transport with the other men. They were fortunate that the drop ramp still functioned and was unburied. You three, cover us! Men, we need to get out of this valley and head to Ursus Station. If any of this rabble breaks away to chase us, it will make the defense of Simus all the easier. Every second we buy is 1 second closer to victory. Albrecht began putting on his snowshoes for the long trek back to Ursus. 3 Kodiaks used the chimera for cover as they fired on the advancing horde. There were still explosions from the mine as they tried to make furious progress towards the stranded guardsmen. Their numbers had been thinned, and their cohesion broke as some of the force made their way for the winding mountain road, and others made their way towards the platoon of guardsmen. The sound of autoguns and las fire filled the air as Albrecht and his men finished donning their snow gear. The 3 Kodiaks putting down fire swapped places with the other 8 as they did the same. The cultists were spread thin as they tried to run up the snowy hillside. They quickly found themselves trudging through knee-deep and sometimes waist-deep snow as the Kodiaks gunned them down in the open. They screamed and forced their way forward. Fortunately for Albrecht, the tanks and more coherent elements of the army were focused on pursuing the rest of the Kodiaks towards Simus Mine. They seemed content to let the undisciplined elements deal with the lone, ruined chimera. By now, Albrecht's men had their snowshoes, and the commander led his men up the hillside in a fighting retreat. About 100 cultists had broken off to pursue them. They were floundering in the snow, but they still had enough massed firepower to be a serious danger to the beset Kodiaks. The 19th traded disciplined las fire with wild shooting from the cultists' autoguns and stubbers. 5 cultists fell. Alexander was struck by a stray bullet, and then was raked by a heavy stubber as he fell backward, staining the snow crimson. The Kodiaks crested the ridge, and Albrecht directed them down another valley to get them out of the cultists' fire. The men moved quickly as their commander looked down at the chimera that was now being swarmed by the foul creatures below. A few shrieked with glee as they saw the wounded Axeli. Their cruel laughter was cut short by an explosion and a burst of shrapnel. Throne protect your souls, Alexander. Axeli. With that, Albrecht turned and followed his men. 10 cultists were dead. 2 Kodiaks had gone to the Emperor in glory. It was a very long way to Ursus Station, but Albrecht knew the land, and these cursed mongrels did not. Outnumbered 9-1, the Kodiaks liked their chances.